Thank you so much for the introduction. Hello, everyone. First of all, a really, really warm welcome to this session. Glad to be back at Abu Dhabi Finance Week after a gap of 2 years, and I must say a lot has changed since then. The vibe is really nice, energy is there, and the scale is larger than ever before, so thank you so much for arranging this event. Today's topic, 2025 has been an interesting year for both public markets as well as private markets. Public markets, driven volatility, what we have seen, stock markets we saw, and then we saw them hitting all-time highs later in the year as well. And same with the private markets as well. We saw a lot of activities as we proceeded in the last few months. So without further ado, we are happy to have a bunch of experts who can shed some light on why this is the prime time for alts, especially in this macroeconomic environment. So without further ado, I would like to proceed with introductions first. Diana?
Hi, everyone. So my name is Diana O'Kelly, and I'm the Chief Strategic Partnerships Officer at iConnections, which is a capital introductions technology platform representing around 50 trillion of GP and LP assets.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Chris Busby. I'm the managing partner of Bridgepoint Europe. We're a private equity firm investing in the mid-market, typically in European headquartered assets. We have three parts to our business. We have an infrastructure, a credit, and a private equity business, and we have about 85 billion of assets under management.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alan Foy. I'm a founder and chairman of VentureWave. We are a venture private equity group that specializes in impact investing and impact strategies in Series A, B, and beyond, in technology companies that are transforming some of the world's biggest challenges using AI and other tools in some amazing sectors like health, education, climate, and so on. So we're really excited to have the conversation today.
Hi, I'm Karim Salah, co-founder, CEO of Gulf Capital. We're one of the oldest, largest private equity firms based in the Gulf, actually based here in ADGM, and we invest across the Gulf and Asia regions with offices across the GCC and Singapore.
And Dr. Karim, we'll start with you. As Gulf Capital is actually a very well-known name in this region, specifically Middle East you talk about, or Asia. How has 2025 changed the investor sentiment when we talk about the alternative investment management landscape in general, and more specifically the private equity market?
I think what we're seeing is a big interest in the Gulf region. When we started here 20 years ago, it was a very lonely place to be with very little investor appetite. You can see it in this conference. So many global investors are coming here. They're interested to deploy, invest in the region. At the end of the day, this is one of the fastest growing regions in the world. It's very refreshing to see global GPs coming here and global investors looking to invest in the region. In the past, GPs were sucking capital out of the region. Now they're looking to deploy in the region because it's an exciting region to invest in.
And Alan, when we talk about the private equity model in general, it is extremely important to understand what founders are building these days. Are there any specific areas they're particularly excited about? In your opinion, which are those sectors or areas that they're really excited about when building their products?
That's absolutely right. I think, and first of all, I should mention that we've actually opened up here in Abu Dhabi as well. And I think, bringing capital to the region is vital. And actually, the amazing entrepreneurs that are actually flocking to this country and to this region is just really, 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 really positive, I think, as a trend. We back entrepreneurs that are transforming business models, that are transforming sectors. So if I take the likes of, healthcare value chain or a climate value chain or energy transition value chain, technology and AI is really changing the game and the operationalization of those technologies. And these entrepreneurs have huge visions, and not just to their local region, to their local territory, but on a global scale. If you look at the venture dollars, about half of venture dollars over the last year have actually gone into an AI strategy. So there will be big winners in this space. There'll obviously be those who don't pass the finish line. But what I will say is that risk is on. The pencil is slightly sharpened. But the bigger the vision, the bigger the model, the bigger the transformation story, the bigger role that AI has to play, and we're very bullish.
And Chris, talking about AI or any particular sector or particular niche, even if you talk about AI, it's a broader topic, it's a massive sector. So it is extremely important to pick up a niche within a particular sector. In your opinion, how important is it to pick up a particular niche?
Yeah, well, look, I think all of us would agree it's absolutely critical to sort of pick your space, find your areas of growth. where is the market opportunity richest and deepest? And I think that actually for us, that's far more important than the macro, because we're a European private equity firm, fundamentally European headquartered, but we have portfolio operations in 40 countries, so our exposure is global. So being in the right niche is critical. I think that the thing that's also really interesting for us is if you take the European market, it's not one market. So when you're looking for a niche, what may be really attractive in Germany may not have the same evidence in France, or maybe you can't take it to the US in the same way. So some of the complexities of Europe are actually some of the biggest advantages about mining these niches. So we have a strategy, we have 8 niches, these are all areas that we've invested in sort of perennially over many years, but it's not just about picking your niches, it's about executing, because I can sit there and say medtech or AI or power towards AI or healthcare innovation, these are really obvious areas. Executing against that is more difficult, and you need people on the ground, you need a network, and you need to access them. And I think for us, that's probably a bigger challenge that you see in the market. Now, we have roughly 120 people across Europe trying to do that, which is how we get our deal flow. But I think you have to start with your niche. That is the driver of your growth. It's the driver of your returns.
And Diana, when we talk about iConnection, is one of the biggest names in the cap intro business. We all know that. So who better than you to tell us how has the discussions between the allocators and fund managers changed in the last few years?
I think so. The conversations are definitely shifting, and the tone of the conversations. LPs used to ask for the big story. Now they want the hard evidence. How are GPs managing liquidity when exits are slow? How are valuations being managed with higher financing costs? And what does the real exit plan look like? So it's much more about concrete evidence that LPs look for.
And what do allocators actually demand from fund managers from that?
It's really transparency and operational excellence. So that is a key that keeps coming up. Building teams with, excellent talent, and transparency into portfolio companies where they want to see the ability to grow the companies and not just buy them at a good price. So I would say the key areas are that sort of transparency and operational excellence from GPs. And given that the top 10 private equity managers now attracted 40% of the capital, there will be concentration of this capital with bigger managers, and LPs are becoming far more selective in their partnerships with GPs.
And in one general questions to all of you, and I'll start with you, Dr. Karim. Alternative investment management space is a competitive space. It's not easy to generate returns or beat other people within the sector. Are there any specific sectors which you think are likely to generate more returns as compared to other sectors going forward?
We used to be a big oil and gas investor. In our second fund, we decided to shift and go towards the sectors of the future. So we're big investors in tech, fintech, healthcare, business services, consumer sustainability. And all of these sectors are growing double digit. And actually, we see it in the data in our portfolio companies. On average, our portfolio companies are growing at 25% per year in profitability. The growth is twofold. The macro, the region is growing phenomenally. Abu Dhabi just grew at 6.8% in the non-oil sector. Phenomenal macro growth, but the portfolio companies and the sectors we're investing in are growing very fast as well. Obviously, we're a very hands-on investor. We have a big bench of operating partners, industry experts. We make a big difference to our portfolio companies, and on average, we tripled the profitability of our companies. So the sectors we're invested in are all growing remarkably in the region.
Alan?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, as a growth investor, we are actually, many of our teams, much like some of the folks here, are kind of operators turned investors. So actually built and scale technology companies and multi-territory, understand the nuances of doing that, and then bring a bit of those lessons learned, if you like, to the portfolio. And really as a supporter and a cheerleader of the entrepreneur, but also helping them navigate some of those big decisions. We tend to differentiate in a few ways, and one thing I would like to touch on is obviously as an impact strategist, we kind of use our own methodology around how you assess an impact of a company, both commercially and also using an impact scoring methodology which we developed. And we actually use AI in the investment process to make sure we're looking at the best deal flow. So we're actually using our own technology to actually help the decision making. So that helps us differentiate. I think there isn't a sector in the world that isn't being touched by AI at the moment. And the key thing is trying to understand the business model transformation on the application layer and understand how large and scalable that can be in multi-territory. And to do that, you need a lot of data, you need a lot of smarts, but then you need a lot of luck as well. So.
Chris?
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, I think if we really started our sector specialism as a fund probably about 20 years ago. And I think we no longer think about business services or healthcare. We go down to the niches within. So we look at medtech, we look at fintech, we'll look at ag science. These are the sort of these are the streams of growth that we really see and where we've built our expertise. I think one of the things you were asking about competition, I think the complexity of Europe that I've also referred to earlier, you can see in the competitive landscape. So if you take the mid-market, which is where we operate, the market in Europe is roughly the same size as the US, but there's half as many GPs in Europe as there are in the US. And I don't think that's just because the industry's grown at different rates. It's more complex. It's more difficult to navigate. So I think you've absolutely got to look at these streams. AI is going to be a huge positive force, a disruptor. It's going to re-engineer industries. You're seeing a wave of deals in some areas of professional services where people are taking a bet on how technology can reinvent the service. There's going to be some big winners and big losers, I think, as a result of that.
Diana?
In terms of the themes we're seeing, it's really technology, financial services, and consumer categories. They continue to stand out due to the strong underlying demand, the clear digitization tailwinds, and multiple avenues for revenue generation.
And going forward, tell us how the risk appetite of investors has changed in the last few years. Obviously, what's going on in global markets, sometimes they get a little scared of volatility, uncertain macroeconomic environment. But how has the risk appetite changed in this particular year, and what do you see going forward? Dr. Karim, if you want to start.
I think investors are looking to diversify away from the US and move closer to this region. I don't think it's riskier to come here. It's a big diversifier. Actually, if you look at a time when US and European economies are slowing down, our economies are booming dramatically. And when European US exits all-time low, the exits are all-time high. So allocating to this region doesn't add risk, it adds diversification. We have like almost a negative correlation. So I tell our global investors, you really ought to allocate to this region because it's a great diversifier.
Alan?
Well, I think fundamentally, like if you look at the national vision here in the UAE and the region, you know, the ecosystem is being built here. You know, if you take some of the big strategic investments that are happening in infrastructure and power, in energy transition, in health, they're happening here. And as an investor, you know, you're getting advantage of that. You're enabling it. It's being enabled. There's a synergistic benefit, if you like, to that. So I think fundamentally, I think this region has huge growth potential over the next 10, 20, 30 years. And as an investor, if you're not here, you're missing out. Just to your point around risk and the kind of changing mindset, you know, there was a time in venture that was kind of growth at all cost, you know, and we've all gone through that and seen it in the bullish periods. I think right now investors are looking for growth, but they're looking for that strong unit economics path to profitability, looking for sound business models that have transferability and scalability, and perhaps doubling down on that a little bit more than they would normally. But that's a good thing for everyone, LPs and investors included.
Chris?
I mean, if your question is how do I think other people's risk appetite is going to change, that's always a sort of tough one to predict and anyone's guess. I think what I would say is I totally agree. There's huge growth across different regions. That the reality is it's not linear. For us, therefore, there's a big benefit in having exposure to, you know, a diversified exposure to those growth areas. But it's also about capturing the strategic value in the businesses you're building. Because yes, it's about the EBITDA, it's about your growth, it's about your margin, but you need to monetize that. You need to find a way of capitalizing. And we've seen a lot of success or a lot of evidence of international buyers wanting exposure to certain markets. So we have a number of portfolio businesses where this is their fastest growing region. But we're attaching an international buyer set that were completely different to the ones we competed with. And I think that's a trend that you're absolutely going to see and is going to sustain. The other point I would make is because it's difficult to predict exactly how these markets are going to develop globally, it's not just about the pricing of your investments, it's the pacing of your investments. And if we sort of think back to 2021, when actually all the markets were on fire, asset inflation was very evident, actually I think if you deployed a huge amount of capital at that point in the market, it's going to have been expensive. So it's not just the pricing discipline you need, it's the pacing discipline as well.
Diana?
We do see commitment to private equity still there, and obviously LPs know that the US mega caps can't carry returns forever, so they are looking to diversify. But I mentioned earlier this concentration on fewer relationship, but with quality GPs, so there's definitely appetite.
And Chris, starting with you, what do you think is the future of the private equity model going forward?
Well, I think there's three areas that I think are they're inevitable. I think there's going to be more consolidation in the industry. It's an industry that's grown so rapidly. I think there is 1,300 mid-market private equity firms in the US. I'm sure they're all completely differentiated, and 500-600 in Europe. It's going to consolidate. I think there's going to be increasing specialization. We are very, very focused on which are the core sectors where we have a track record, we have a right to win, we have a playbook. And I think really sticking to that specialism is how you generate consistently strong returns. And then finally, I think it's going to differentiate. And the differentiation is those delivering consistently attractive, strong returns and act as a partner with their LPs. Because there are moments in time when you get quite varied results in terms of people's performance. But actually, if you look over 10 years, there's some pretty clear trend lines developing. So I think it'll be more consolidated. I think it'll be more specialized. And the differentiation will be through those generating consistent returns.
Alan?
I concur that I think specialist strategies are going to win out, absolutely. I would also say that global networks are going to play a really, really important role. So if that's deal sharing, syndication, co-investing with others. In my world, that's more and more important because ultimately, local knowledge but global reach is really, really powerful. You're probably going to think I'm single-minded on this, but I do think that AI is transforming the investment process. I mean, we're using it today. We're investing millions in how AI can enable us make better decisions on a daily basis. Now, you still need a human at the end of the day as the asset manager. That's what we're there for. But using the tools that are there to enable your decision making, make better returns for your investors, and ultimately manage risk at the same time, that's got to be the future, and that's certainly what we're investing in.
Dr. Cunning?
We're seeing two trends. The first one, I think David Rubenstein this morning mentioned it. The global south is going to catch up on private equity. Global investors are extremely under-allocated to the global south. They're over-allocated to the US, Europe, and it's going to come here, and we're seeing it. So you're going to see a reallocation towards this part of the world, because at the end of the day, over the next 30 years, the growth is coming from Middle East and Asia, essentially. So that's one trend. The other trend we're seeing is it's amazing how AI is boosting the productivity of our portfolio companies. We're going to be using it in every single portfolio company. I'll give you an example. We own a company called CWB. It's the world leader in registering trademarks and patents. We operate in 100 countries out of ADGM. And it used to take us 15 hours to take a patent, study it, and file it, and then build a client and translate it. Today, we have 5 agentic AI robots working for us. We do it in 10 minutes. Our EBITDA margin shot up from 20 to 90%. So you look at this and say, how can I not use technology in all my portfolio companies? It's coming. And actually, we have to adopt it. It's like eat or be eaten. If we don't adopt technology, our portfolio companies have no hope. So we want to be leaders in that, and that's coming.
So just last question as we are running out of time. You talked about Abu Dhabi, you talked about UAE in general. What makes Abu Dhabi special in this space? What are the advantages Abu Dhabi has?
Look, we have portfolio companies operating in 100 countries around the world. You won't find a place where there's leadership, vision, execution, diversification. When I moved here 25 years ago, this economy was 75% oil-based in the UAE, 25% non-oil. Today, it flipped, it's 75% non-oil, 25% oil. We have amazing leadership that's executing and diversifying. And today, we're world leaders in adoption of AI and renewables, along with the US and China. So it's a great place to be in today.
Alan?
I think I fully agree. I think ultimately, you've got that leadership, you've got capital with capital, you've got global trade links, and you've got talent, lots of talent coming here, wanting to live here, and talent that's emerging from here. So I think all of those three elements converging make it a very, very positive place to be.
Chris?
Yeah, to try and be brief, I totally agree. I mean, we've had assets here, material exposure for 15, 20 years, but we've opened an office in Abu Dhabi. We think this is a really core area and market for us. And actually, just look at the energy that's in this conference. It's sort of evidence. There's the long-term thinking of the region, but there's also just the energy and the sort of the can-do attitude that I think is really palpable.
Diana?
Yes, completely, echoing your comments, and also historically, obviously the region was seen as, the hub for capital raising, but there's so many incredible opportunities to deploy capital now in the region as well, which makes it a very exciting place for funds. And we see the inflow of funds in Abu Dhabi alone on sort of weekly basis. There are announcements of funds coming here, so it's very exciting to be here.
On that note, thank you so much for your valuable insight, everyone, and thanks everyone for staying with us. Thank you so much.